you can have privacy on the internet, you can have internet freedom. But what VPN doesn't help you with is it doesn't help you with the information you're seeing targeted by the social media algorithms. It doesn't help you with the information you're seeing from the legacy media. You can access all the information in the world. Cool, that's fine. But that doesn't mean that you can find the truth. It doesn't mean that you can find different opinions. You can be stuck in an echo chamber. VPN doesn't help with that. So I think the monopolization of the internet, the way that Sir Berners-Lee, the founder of the internet, the way that he described it to me, his concerns about monopolization of the internet by these 5 companies, that's a very real issue.
Hello, everybody. This is Pascal from Neutrality Studies, and today I'm talking to David Gorodyansky. David is a Silicon Valley tech-entrepreneur who developed and mass deployed one of the most important technologies of the internet age. I'm speaking, of course, about virtual private networks, or VPN. David founded a company called AnchorFree, which developed HotSpot Shield, one of the most successful VPN services out there. And just to be clear, this video is not sponsored by any VPN service. I'm just genuinely interested in talking about the fulfilled and unfulfilled promises of the internet age. And I can't think of somebody more perfect for this than an entrepreneur who himself has been involved in building part of the online world as we know it today. So, David, welcome.
Thank you, Pascal. Excited to be here.
Well, thank you very much for making the time, because this issue of internet freedom and freedom of speech, and also just the architecture of the internet that allows us to do all of this, is very dear to my heart, because a lot of things that we are able to do today, including these conversations here, are enabled by internet technologies. I just yesterday it occurred to me that we developed the nuclear capabilities 80 years before we developed Zoom capabilities. It's kind of crazy to think about, but so this is the what I would like to ask you. But can we start maybe with yourself a little bit? Like, how did you get started, or how did you end up in the tech space, and how did you develop a VPN service that I think became also politically important, for instance, during the Arab Spring? Could you tell us that story a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. In college, I was very inspired by meeting Muhammad Yunus, who won the Nobel Peace Prize for getting 100 million people out of poverty, creating micro lending. And I thought, what am I going to do with my life, my energy, and my youth to do something that meaningful and that impactful? And for me, I was thinking that basically, what are big problems affecting billions of people that we can go address and try to solve? And I knew that whether I was going to start a business or an organization or an NGO or whatever I want to do, it was going to be through this lens of like devoting my time and energy to addressing problems affecting billions of people. And at the time, I realized that security online and privacy were big problems and becoming bigger and bigger. And now, of course, they're enormously big. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but they've just exponentially grown over the years. But in the early days, I was, I think, like 23 or 24 years old when I started AnchorFree.
So that was back in 2009, 10?
Yeah, exactly. No, we started like in 2007 and then 2008 timeframe. And I've got to say, by the way, that I sold the company in 2018. So nothing I say here has anything to do with the view of the company. They're all my personal views. I'm not involved. The company's been sold a long time ago. But the way we started it is really thinking about, okay, privacy and security are going to be like massive problems in the world, affecting billions of people. I'm 24 years old, and I want to go spend the next decade of my life trying to address these important issues. What we didn't understand initially is how connected privacy and security are with internet freedom and freedom of speech. Like we didn't make that connection initially, right? We thought, protecting your data online is important, kind of period. And what we learned, over time is we started right, just before the Arab Spring started. And we saw basically during the Arab Spring that we left our offices one evening and we had 0 users from the Middle East, not a single one. And the next morning we walked into our office and we had 1 million users from Egypt, 1 million in one night. And we said, well, what's going on in Egypt? We have no idea. We don't know anyone in Egypt. We've never done any marketing in Egypt. We have no idea what's going on. And what we found was that, well, the government of Egypt during the Arab Spring started to censor information, news sites, social media, Twitter, Facebook, etc. And they found the people in Egypt on their own, with no efforts from us, found AnchorFree's HotSpot Shield product and decided to basically use it to get around the censorship and to get it to a free and open internet. The same thing happened in Libya, in Tunisia, and really all over the Middle East. About a third of the population of the Middle East started to use our product for internet freedom, for getting around censorship. And we thought, wow, privacy and security are very deeply connected to internet freedom and to freedom of speech, because basically, if you want to have internet freedom, you want to have the right to privacy. In other words, you'll be afraid if you're in a country like Saudi Arabia or Egypt during the Arab Spring or whatever. You may often be concerned about voicing your opinions unless you have the right to privacy. And so privacy and security are deeply, deeply connected. And people used our product both to protect their privacy and to gain freedom to go to whatever information they wanted to go to online. So that to me was like, wow, there's 2 billion people living in places with censorship. There's billions of people that have restricted freedom of speech, including in some of the developed markets. And there's billions of people that need privacy and security. And so we said, this business really, we're going to build it around these basic human rights. The United Nations Declaration of Human Rights lists internet freedom and privacy as basic human rights. And we said, what is a better way to impact 1 billion people and solve a 1 billion person problem than addressing these very important human rights and making them central to the actual product that we build? Because, a lot of companies build, they sell Coca-Cola and then they have a department that's focused on doing something good for the world. My point of view has always been, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to build a product that changes the world, your product, the good that you create has to be in your product. It can't be a department on the side that does the good stuff and your product does something that perhaps is not good. You have to have a product that does good, inherent in its sort of DNA and its creation. And so that's what we've done. One fascinating thing is, over the last decade, before we sold the business, every geopolitical event, every major revolution, uprising, every major privacy and security breach anywhere in the world had a massive spike in our usage. So that example of having 1 million users join us in Egypt overnight, that kept on happening over the course of about a decade. So we would see something happening in Latin America, something happening in Turkey, something happening in the US, in Europe, and we would see these massive spikes in usage. And very often reporters, journalists would come to us and say, hey, can you tell us where the next, where's the next revolution? Where's the next, because we could see the big spikes right away. Whenever something would happen somewhere in the world, people wanted to protect their data, their security, their privacy, and gain internet freedom. They would jump on our platform and do that. So I could talk, a lot about it. But maybe you want to ask a few questions on it.
Yeah, I do, because what you're doing is, or what you build is highly interesting, also from a political and even a philosophical point of view. Because on the one hand, data privacy and freedom of speech and so on are hugely interesting. On the other hand, what we also see is, especially when we talk, let's say, about the Arab Spring or about a couple of these color revolutions that we saw in Eastern Europe, we see also manufactured political dissent that, of course, is rooted in real local grievances, and the real grievances is what leads people then to seek these ways of communicating and so on, and that's what leads to a user base, right? But inherently, the criticism that could be voiced is, oh, so your technology helped foster color revolutions. On the other hand, the these technologies also help getting around censorship even at home, even in Europe right now. I mean, if you're living in most EU countries, if you want to access Russia Today, the homepage, you need to use a VPN service because the EU blocks the IPs of these sites. So, in a sense, technology is forced into this neutral position, as in it depends on how you use it, right? On what you use it for. So what are, for instance, the 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 moral challenges that you were facing, or that came to mind when you developed these VPN protocols and ways to circumvent government induced policies?
Well, so first of all, like we were as technologists, right? Our technology was never political in any way and wasn't intended by anyone to have any political implications. But it was really, to your point of neutrality studies, technology is neutral. It's like you can use Google to find information about how to do something good, bake a cake, I don't know, or how to do something bad, right? You can use Google for different reasons. In the same way, you could use social media in the same way you could use cybersecurity products. So really, we never, really intended for our product to be used for any revolutions. We intended for it to be used for privacy and internet freedom. And I'll tell you that even people who have always been very much against any kind of revolutions or uprisings have reacted positively over the years to our product, simply because it provides freedom to get to information and privacy, and those are important human rights. It doesn't provide a platform for political for political action. That's not its intention, and that's not what it does. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you this. We had two parts to our business. One was a consumer app, which is what I've been talking about. People download the app and use it to be private and secure online and to get to whatever information they want. The other part of the business was a software development kit, a piece of our technology that other applications could integrate into their products. And this technology was, we never had any salespeople. Our company was all engineering. And so we didn't have any salespeople. We just said, here's our technology. If anyone wants to integrate it and use it, you're welcome. And companies in the cybersecurity space, I would say 70% of the largest security companies in the world, including Japan, where you're based, Latin America, Europe, obviously in the US, even in Russia, all over the world, integrated our technology to provide VPN services to their customers, to their users. And so it was never, again, this was really a really good technology that I think created really good impact for millions and millions of people around the world. By the way, I should tell you, we reached, at the time we sold the business, we had 650 million people install the application globally. 650 million people.
No, it's a fantastic achievement. And seriously, honestly, like I think VPN is one of the most important parts of the modern internet, just because it does allow individuals to decide themselves which firewalls they want to get, which censorship they want to get around, or how far they want to protect themselves. I'm just thinking about, my friends in China, the ones who want to access sites in the West that their government doesn't like. They need to use VPN. My friends in the EU, even researchers who want to just know what RT writes, they need to use VPN in order to get there. This connects to maybe the second part, just this question of the internet, the internet itself was supposed to be this free space, right? Back in the 1990s, early 2000s, this free space where everybody can develop themselves and everybody can connect with each other. But what we found out is that pretty quickly, government stepped in and started compartmentalizing that. And also the way we start using the internet with Facebook, with Instagram, with social media, which are platforms that compartmentalize where we spend time, right? It didn't quite become that
Exactly.
super open place, didn't it? Did it?
Exactly. So I have a couple of comments that are right on this point. So the first is people use VPNs not only to circumvent censorship, but also for privacy and security. And one comment on privacy that I think is really important to understand is that the people want to be private. The people value their right to privacy. Again, it's part of the UN's Declaration of Human Rights, personal privacy. But nobody besides us, the people, want us to be private. Nobody. So hackers try to hack our data. They don't want to be private. And a lot of people use VPN to protect themselves from hackers. Nothing to do with censorship is one part of it. But there's millions of people that here in the US, by the way, the US was our number one country at AnchorFree. It turned our number one country became over time the US. A lot of people initially it was the Middle East, but over time the US became our number one country because a lot of people are concerned about hackers who want to exploit data. Data brokers, I don't know if you know this, but the data broker industry is $200 billion.
What?
These are companies none of us have ever heard of, crawling cookies, putting cookies on our browsing behavior, and basically selling our data. That's a $200 billion industry. And then, of course, there's companies like Facebook and the like who mine our data and buy and trade and sell and try to exploit our data. And so there's governments, hackers, Facebook, data brokers. There's a whole list of people or entities who want to exploit user data. And almost nobody is interested in protecting it, except for us, the people. We're interested in protecting it. And so I think sometimes I think that maybe there should be some kind of a new organization that is by the people, for the people, that protects cybersecurity and privacy. Because really nobody besides the people have an interest in protecting our privacy. Now, on the point you made about the internet's intention of being this place for democracy and the reality sort of being different, you're absolutely right. When I sold the business, the last dinner I had before leaving the company was with Tim Berners-Lee. Tim Berners-Lee is considered the father of the internet. He created the HTTP protocol. So we had dinner and he said exactly what you were just referring to, which is he said, look, when I was creating the internet, I really thought the intention was to democratize information and give everybody sort of equal access to the world's information and make it very democratic. The reality of what happened, he said, was that 5 companies monopolized the internet, right? So Google, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon, and maybe a few others created these monopolies around the internet and control a wide part of the internet, which kind of here's the guy who created the internet sharing this sort of he was disillusioned in a way. He was concerned. He was deeply concerned. This was back in 2019. This was before COVID. This was before all of the things that have happened over the last 6 years. In 2019, he was very, very concerned about the future of the internet. Here's the father of the internet. We had dinner. He was very concerned. And so what we see 6 years, fast forwarding 6 years to 2025, well, the data broker industry has grown to 200 billion, as I mentioned, massive. We see internet connected devices, IoT devices, right? Internet connected devices have grown massively, which has created an exponential amount of data, of consumer data that is being mined, attacked by hackers, mined by data brokers, sold and resold. And then we have social media, which are using their algorithms to basically put people into these echo chambers, also based on mining data, right? Also based on your data, putting people in these echo chambers of only seeing what they sort of confirming what they already believe. So there's confirmation bias where they don't see any other opinions. And so they think that anyone with a different opinion must be crazy because they've never seen anyone with a different opinion, because all the things they see on their social media feeds are people that agree with them. So that's created basically a big issue, I think. And then you have legacy. So you have social media, which puts you in these echo chambers by mining your data and trying to understand what you like, and not showing you anything else. And then you have legacy media, which has just lost all credibility, I think, over the last years. I think ever since the Iraq War until now, they've just been losing credibility every day. So I think that's why. So people kind of said, okay, I can't trust the legacy media anymore because I'm going to go to social media, but then the social media also is full of misinformation and all kinds of issues. So you can't really trust that because these algorithms put you in this echo chamber where you're not seeing other opinions. So then you end up at a point where people are just like very closed off to hearing any opinions or information that they may or may not agree with, that they may disagree with. And then, that leads to the issues we're seeing today in the world, where you see people and nations that should be talking, should be engaging in dialogue and diplomacy, and for the last 3-4 years they haven't, right? And that's creating a big problem for the world. But I think part of the issue is technology and geopolitics are very interconnected, right? And all of these things are connected. Internet freedom of speech, privacy, social media, legacy media, misinformation, AI. It's all very, very connected. So the next frontier, I think, is basically around AI-driven misinformation. AI algorithms will create information, whatever they want, and basically detecting what's human made and what's AI made.
Yeah. No, the AI question is a whole separate kind of scary potential future if we don't find like an AI version of VPN in order to kind of protect us from that. But the question to my mind is, do you think technology ultimately drives society and societal behavior, or is it the innate societal behavior that ultimately drives technology? So when it comes to compartmentalization of the internet and the finding yourself in your own little bubble, I mean, that happens in everyday life as well, right? So there's a social aspect to it that then technology just serves. On the other hand, technology creates new potential for societally let's say like harmful societal developments. How do you view that interconnection, and should technology be regulated by the collective? And the collective we have is our governments. I mean, there is very good reasons to say like certain things need to be forbidden. Child pornography, teaching illegal weapons trade, right? All of these things, a lot of us would agree, we don't want that on the Wild West internet.
Yes. So I think the answer is yes to all of the above. But the question of whether technology drives societal change or society drives technology, I kind of think the answer is both. Kind of like a circle, they one drives the other and the other drives this. I mean, in other words, society, technology is kind of neutral and it's used by people the way that people want to use it in one sense. On the other hand, these large technology companies make money by basically monetizing user data or putting people into echo chambers where they're seeing ads and information targeting this group versus this group, that are very different. And so, part of it, I think, part of the issue is also like the economic incentives of these technology companies, right? Are they making money from exploiting user data and therefore causing harm to society? or are they making money from other ways, other ways that perhaps are not harmful? I agree with you that some information on the internet, is bad. I'm not, as a matter of fact, we ran a database. Most security companies, you may know this, most security companies run a fairly standard database of bad websites on their servers that they block. That's not the same thing as a censor blocking access to news or social media. It's just like, malware and things that are just clearly bad. So everybody blocks that. We did that. We blocked bad sites, and all the other security companies do too. So that's standard stuff. That's standard stuff.
So
But,
that just to be clear, like even using some VPN services, the VPN service itself might block certain sites.
basically, there's like widely acceptable lists of bad sites
Yes.
that are like basically malware sites, right? Or dangerous, I don't know, whatever, right? So yeah, they're pretty much, there's like standard lists that everybody blocks. I don't know if
Who makes the list?
usually they come from just like cybersecurity associations, and you have things like the Electronic Frontier Foundation, like privacy NGOs and stuff that look at that, and so it's not like there's some malicious government.
No. But this is a crucial point. I mean, I wasn't aware that VPN services do that. But if they do that, then the question is who makes the list? Because the list maker thereby, could sneak in one or the other side.
It's no.
No?
It basically no. The list is basically made by large cybersecurity companies, like audited by 100 auditors, looked at by every NGO that's in the privacy space. If somebody tries to sneak something in there, that would come out in 2 seconds. So no. I think there's really no issue on that. And the thing is, like, if you look at VPN traffic, it mirrors normal internet usage. So 99% of VPN traffic is just like, it looks exactly like the internet. Google, YouTube, Facebook, X, Twitter, right, et cetera, Snapchat, and so on. That's news sites. That's like what 99% of VPN traffic is. So people think, oh, if I'm going to be private, am I going to do something that I wouldn't normally do? And the answer is not really. We surveyed our users and asked them, because we didn't know where our users went because the product's totally anonymous. But we surveyed our users and asked them, like, what's important to you? Why do you want to be private? And most people said, I want to be private when it comes to my health. Like, I'm searching on Google something related to health. I don't want my insurance company to find out. My health, my wealth, anything finance related, or my family. I'm talking to my wife. I don't want that conversation to be, used by data brokers for whatever reason, things like that. So I think for the most part, and this is interesting because coming back to your first question, like how we started the company, when we first went out and met with investors in Silicon Valley, and we said we're building this product for privacy and internet freedom, the pushback we got from investors in the early days was, well, why do I want to be private? I have nothing to hide. That was one thing. And the other thing was internet freedom. Well, that sounds like something that affects countries in the emerging markets. And that's ROW, rest of world. And why do we care about the rest of the world? That was kind of the early feedback. Then we actually said other countries are not rest of world. They're actually most of the world. So we kept on explaining to them that most of the world is actually outside the US, and that internet freedom was an important human right and could be a great business. And privacy, millions of people want to be private, not because they have something to hide, but because they have a lot to protect. And so we tried to explain. So the early days, the venture capital community in Silicon Valley did not understand those things. They said, privacy and internet freedom, we don't care. Then we raised the first 11 million in funding from friends and family and people we knew, big angels and so on. Then we became big. And when we became big, Goldman Sachs came in. They said, you guys are one of the top apps in the App Store. You have millions of people using your product. This is so important to the world. And they invested $52 million into the business. Well, when that happened, all the venture capital firms that told us that this is not important, came to us and said, oh my God, could we invest? This is so aligned with our values, internet freedom and privacy. This is so aligned with our values. And I thought, well, I mean, I don't know. You said that this is a rest of world problem, but So, anyways, you see how people change.
I mean, on the one hand, there's of course the aspect of like jumping on board of the train too late and then making excuses. On the other hand, we've also learned a couple of things, especially over the last couple of years, that our like the Western countries are not as benign as we thought when it comes to privacy issues, right? I mean, when was this idea? I think it was 2021, 2022 of the United States, when Joe Biden wanted to create an agency for to defend against misinformation, and he had to shelve the idea ultimately. He wanted to create a whole agency and give it to this crazy lady. I forgot her name as well. To basically monitor the internet for misinformation and create misinformation, a database of sites that should not be accessed and that even should be punished if they broadcast something wrong. I mean, these ideas are around in people right in the West.
They are. I mean, we saw the speech that J.D. Vance just made in Munich on the topic of European, censorship and freedom of speech in Europe, which I think it's important. It's important to, it's important to understand that those things are happening in the West as well. I mean, obviously we had the Snowden revelations, which were a big deal,
and the Twitter files as well, showing that government directly tries to take away information from the public space that is even in the United States protected, right?
Yeah, and so it's again, it's like governments are interested in our data, hackers are interested, data brokers are interested, companies like Facebook are interested. Everybody wants our data. Everybody wants to like control freedom of speech. The only people who want to proliferate privacy, internet freedom, and freedom of speech are we, the people, because all these entities have no interest in that. They have an interest in the contrary. I've seen, of course, this go from. It was very interesting to me because I thought freedom of speech and internet freedom were challenges in emerging markets, the Middle East and so on. But then we have people here in the US arguing for banning TikTok. And these are the same people that have criticized, China for censoring Facebook and Twitter. And I kind of think, well, we've got to decide, are we going to take a principle view that internet freedom and privacy and freedom of speech are our values? If these are our values, we've got to stick to it. We can't be hypocritical and say, well, it's bad when China does it, but if we do it, it's okay. And like, I was honestly shocked when I saw so many people in Congress wanting to ban TikTok. Not because I like TikTok. I don't use TikTok, and I don't really care about TikTok one way or the other. So it's not that I have some affinity to it. I don't care about TikTok in particular. But I was very surprised that people that for years seem to advocate for freedom of speech and internet freedom as core values all decided to start censoring the internet. To me, that was very surprising. And you see a lot of hypocrisy like that, unfortunately.
Yeah, but we can't escape it, right? We can't escape the discussion. So the question then is, how do technology companies also interact with that? Because they become important political actors in their own right. The decisions they make, they influence stuff. I remember this case where the FBI needed to get inside a phone of a terrorist who killed himself in the US, and they wanted to force Apple to add a backdoor to make sure that they can get in, and Apple refused and said, "Look, if we breach this frontier, this barrier, then all hell will break loose." Even though in this case we understand why, but we can set the precedent. And then there's these cases, and I would like to know your opinion on this one. What do you do with, or how do you think about cases when we have contradiction between the law and the societal interest? Let's take copyright. Copyright is enshrined all over the world, and it's clear we have clear copyright protection that includes books. Any book I write and publish with one of these publishers, this thing here will be copyrighted until 70 years after my death. Even though I wrote it and I don't get any money for it, it is copyrighted. It will belong to the publisher until 70 years after my death. Now, I think this is horrible because this book also still costs about $100 or $80 to buy, because these publishers, they sell to libraries, not to private individuals, because they want to maximize profit. So this is fair and square and legal. But societal interest might be to get access to what's in these books for free. And we have homepages like that, the most important one being Library Genesis, libgen.is. Since last week, I cannot access it anymore, and I can see that my browser just doesn't load it. It's not offline, it doesn't load it. So I think that on some level now the domain probably got blocked. I don't know. I don't know why, but it's offline. This online site offers like millions of books for free, pirated. But in this sense, piracy is in the interest of the general public. How do you think about these cases?
Well, it's very complicated, and it's going to be much more complicated in the coming years with the AI writing books, and who's that going to belong to? And if and then if Google builds a new AI model, or OpenAI builds a new AI model, and that AI model produces a lot of books, does that belong to the company that owns the AI model? Or if I use ChatGPT to help me write a book, does that, or help me create software, does that intellectual property belong to me or to ChatGPT? So those are legal. I'm not a legal scholar. This is like a question for legal scholars. I could tell you one thing though, that we see that when society really, really wants something, that laws can adapt. And one example of that is Uber. Uber ride-hailing was illegal in the US. I don't know about other countries. I don't know about Japan, where you are. I have no idea. But in the US, we had taxi cabs, and the idea of ride-hailing was not legal. You had to get like a special medallion to be a cab driver. And it cost a lot of money. I think it cost like $100,000 or something to get the medallion. There was a line. So when Uber started, basically, they weren't really legal. They were like half legal. And they changed the law. So many people wanted to use the service that the law adapted to the society, right? To the change in the society. But it was very hard. I know this, I don't know if you watched the Uber movie. It's very good. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. But it's amazing. It was very hard for them, very hard, to make that change.
Yeah.
That's the thing about entrepreneurship that I like. Most people accept the world the way it is. Entrepreneurs see the world not the way it is, but the way it should be.
Mm-hmm.
And they try to disrupt the status quo to change the world to their vision of it. And I think there's something beautiful about that, because if you're always stuck in the status quo, and if you just accept the status quo, the world is the way it is, that's it, you're never going to have progress and change. But if you are, constantly basically pushing against the status quo, constantly trying to think differently, come up with new ideas, I think that's the way progress is made. And so that's kind of comes back around to the point about when people are stuck in echo chambers of just reconfirming their beliefs, when people are not talking to people with different opinions, when nations are not able to send their diplomats to talk to each other, simply to have dialogue, we have real problems when that happens, right? As we see in our lives and in our world, over the last years. So I think it's so important that we have the freedom to get to information, the freedom to speak our minds, the freedom and the ability to listen to other people, the freedom to protect our data from everyone, from whoever we want to protect it from, and having that freedom lead to dialogue between people and between nations.
Yeah. That would be absolutely the optimal case. And like, I mean, I wouldn't be able to run this YouTube channel if we didn't have technologies that allows us to connect, even via video, and even add more people, right? This is important technology. In a sense, it's dumb in the sense that it's very basic. It just allows people to exchange, but this exchange is what grows networks and movements, right? This is then where the political part comes in. Do you think that the future of the political future of the planet, in general, the way that things are working, because you have also connections to many places outside of the US, right? You're globally connected. Is the political drive going to be one rather toward more interconnection or one to more compartmentalization overall? I mean, will we need more VPN? Will we need more technologies that will allow us to connect with each other? Or do you see now a change in the political mindset of global leaders?
Well, I think technology is one thing and global leaders are a different thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes these are two very different worlds. Sometimes, but they're interconnected. They interconnect on certain issues at certain points. But I do think technology will continue to be interconnected. I think the world will continue to be interconnected by technology. I think people are going to basically have more and more technological innovation that will connect countries and people and opinions and ideas. So I think that's going to happen. I think that whether global leaders catch up to that and also engage in global dialogue and so on remains to be seen. And then what happens to the legacy media? Are they going to sort of innovate and reform? Or are they just gonna like continue the old school way and just die? So that's another question that I don't know the answer. But I know the world that I'd like to see. That's what I laid out: the world of freedom of speech, of countries talking to each other, of diplomacy, of dialogue, of internet freedom. That's the world I want to see. Privacy protections. I want to see a world without wars. I think wars, we should have peace. And if we have wars, then we should do everything we can to talk and lead dialogue leads to diplomacy, and diplomacy leads to peace. And I think every normal human being should try to advocate for diplomacy in any conflict.
Yeah, the information stream is then such that starts twisting this around. The weird problem that we have is that if you ask 100 people, are you for peace? You will get 100 times the answer, yes. I am almost sure. It's really hard to find somebody who says, no, I genuinely don't like peace. The problem is that we all have different interpretations of what a good peace looks like.
Exactly. So you're absolutely right. So now I've stopped asking people, are you for peace? I first ask, are you for dialogue?
Yeah.
And are you for diplomacy? Are you for peace? So it's like, you've got to check the boxes, because if they like peace, but they don't like dialogue and diplomacy, then you know where they stand. Then they don't really want peace, right?
Yeah, they want their version of peace, their vision, and even if that vision needs to be implemented with bombs, that's still acceptable as a means of implementation of peace, which of course is a stupid thing, but a lot of people don't. Unfortunately, some people can see that.
Yeah, you know what I find? I try to tell people that you can't understand politics without understanding geography and economics.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of people think they understand politics, but they don't know anything about geography and economics, and therefore they don't really have a full opinion. So they just repeat kind of the boilerplate things that they see on TV and in the news, legacy news, or on social media. And that's unfortunate, because I mean, it's clear to anyone who thinks about it deeply that peace comes from dialogue and diplomacy. You can't have peace without dialogue and diplomacy. You just have to think about it for 5 minutes, but But yeah, unfortunately, common sense is not common, as they
Quest
say.
Question: do you conceptualize the internet also as a geographic space? Because it's clearly an economic space, right? But is it also a geographic one? Because one of the frontiers that a lot of states talk about is like the cyber war, cyber attacks, cyber defense. I mean, it is conceptualized in these ways. Is that true for you as well? Do you think as it as a geographic space where warfare can take place?
I certainly hope that it won't be geographic.
Mm,
I certainly hope that it'll be global.
mm.
For me, like compartment, like like splitting up the internet into geographical influences and all this. It sounds like a very bad idea. So
But
I
that's exactly
really,
what we need VPN to get over with, right? The internet is locally or jurisdictionally separated.
if it stops being jurisdictionally separated, you'll still need VPN for privacy and security. But if you don't have privacy and security concerns, and the internet's not geographically separated, and you don't need a VPN, then we're in a very good world. Then we're in a good future, right? So, VPN solves a problem of injustice, of your data being collected without your consent and exploited and resold, and your right to access information being restricted. If those injustices are solved in the world, then you don't need a VPN, and that's beautiful.
Yeah, but they won't. I mean, we live with these problems for thousands of years, not just decades, right? But then, so the need for this won't go away. The question is, okay, one more question. Um, how mighty is VPN? Like, for instance, what is the Chinese government doing in order to prevent people from using VPN to get around its censorship? What can if the European Union tomorrow decides I need to get rid of this stupid problem that people use VPN to access RT? If they decide to do that, is there a technological way to, just make sure VPN can work? Or is VPN really that deeply ingrained that on a technological level it will always work?
Well, it depends what kind of VPN you use. Some VPNs are very easy to be blocked, right? So some VPNs have very basic old school technology that the censors can easily block the same way they block Twitter or Facebook or Google, they block the VPN, no problem. Other VPNs are much more sophisticated, and it's very hard to block them. It depends on the technology that's used. Probably, the other thing that you might find interesting and kind of non-obvious is that a lot of countries, not all, but a lot of countries that censor the internet buy technology, the firewalls that censor information from companies here in Silicon Valley. And it's funny because we were providing internet freedom to millions of people. And the people that were trying to censor us on the other side, they were using technology from a company down the street from us. So
The internet cages.
we were battling the censors, but really they were using another Silicon Valley company that they were buying these firewalls that were trying to censor. So it's no matter what, it's funny, no matter how you spin it, a lot of the technology comes from Silicon Valley. Although China, of course, has their own technology and it's very sophisticated. But I do think, I do hope the internet will be global and freedom of speech and internet freedom will be more ubiquitous.
No, I have the same hope. It's just like looking at the development of how governments and how people in societies develop technologies. I mean, the oldest thing in the world is that you have a new technology that proliferates information, and then you immediately have forces working against that. You can go back to the printing press of Gutenberg, right? You can go further back. It happens immediately, and we never solve it. We never do. We get to the next stage, and we never resolve the actual issue. So the issue will stay with us. The question is how we, also civil society, can address that issue and what kind of norms and consensus we come up of and technologies we come up to actually to get our fair right to free information and free speech.
That's true.
So again, it's there's no silver bullet, in order to make sure that also on the internet that you are completely free. I mean, even VPN has its pitfalls, huh?
Well, I mean, it depends what you mean by completely free. I think if you use VPN to protect your privacy, if you use a good VPN, by the way, not all VPNs are the same. There, I don't even know what a lot of these VPN products do. Some of them are from companies with no management team. They don't list their management team. You don't know who's behind them. So you have to pick a good VPN company that provides a good credible VPN. Like we, for example, had during our time building our product, we had independent audits. We had like a transparency report we issued every year. So these things are important. It's important to pick the right VPN, but I do think you can have privacy on the internet. You can have internet freedom. But what VPN doesn't help you with is it doesn't help you with the information you're seeing targeted by the social media algorithms. It doesn't help you with the information you're seeing from the legacy media. It doesn't help you with any of that. And so basically, you can get to a free and open you can access all the information in the world. Cool, that's fine. But that doesn't mean that you can find the truth. It doesn't mean that you can find different opinions. You can be stuck in an echo chamber. VPN doesn't help with that. So I think the monopolization of the internet, the way that Sir Berners-Lee, the founder of the internet, the way that he described it to me, his concerns about monopolization of the internet by these 5 companies, that's a very real issue.
Mm-hmm. That issue is still with us, right? I mean, we tend to think that because we live in the current, we are living in the most modern world ever. But no, this is a basic issue, and it's these 5 companies control large parts of the internet in the West, right? You then have other companies in, like, say, Russia and China that control their part of the internet, or that are responsible for it. So no, we live in a fragmented online world, aren't we?
It's fragmented, but I would say it's become more fragmented over the last number of years. And I hope it will swing the other way around and it will become less fragmented, right? I hope that we can really start collaborating between nations to build AI, to build technology, to find ways to also control these things so they don't get out of hand, right? Build NGOs together with other nations that could not restrict free speech, but that can basically make sure that, like, our AI doesn't take over the world and things like that. And so I think my hope is that the craziness of trying to separate the world into these blocks and separate technology and do things, separate the internet and separate information. I hope all that craziness will go away and we can have a future that's more interconnected, more peaceful, where major global powers come together to collaborate in dialogue, diplomacy, and peace, and work together in innovation versus doing what's been happening for the last few years. So very hopeful, but who knows?
Yeah, no, that's why I like you. I like your vision, David. You are absolutely right with the vision. The question is, how do we get there? Because it's not just a problem of people. People are inherently good, I believe. Most people, they care. But once you put us together and you create collectives, we start behaving weirdly and we start even doing wars. And we need to get a grip on this. We haven't managed in the last thousands of years. Question is if the internet or if technology will help. But the vision is absolutely correct. So all the entrepreneurs out there, please engage with David to figure out how we can get there. Do you want to add anything, or?
We'll have to work on it.
We have to work on it. David, do you publish somewhere where people can read about your analysis or what you do? Where should people go?
I haven't published recently. I used to write stuff for Forbes and Inc. magazine, but I haven't done it in a long time. I should probably start publishing stuff.
Substack's a good place. It's the platform I like very much for long form publishing. YouTube, the other one, of course. I would like to thank you very much for taking the time, David Gorodyansky, and we'll speak again, I'm sure.
Thank you, Pascal.